Where's that darn karate Jew? They're making us ravenous look horrible.
If you've enjoyed this program, please click like and subscribe.
Ni Yehovah Elohim Elohim Nobranan Amahe Yusam Balahe Yaakov.
Shalom, and welcome to another exciting edition of Torah Watchman Show, LLC. None other than your humble host here, New Karate Jew, Reb ben-Emmett, none other, right? On YouTube, you can find all my videos there. They're free. I don't have any subscription fees like other rabbis and other Jewish channels like that. You can download them for your personal interest if you want to. I actually have my videos, my Parashah videos, for instance, the Torah cycles, one every week. They're actually a broadcast in India, in Andhra Pradesh, about Noahides that are wanting to learn more about the Torah. And they are very astute in English. They speak better English than some people do in America. And also my Ugandan brethren too. These are Orthodox Jews living in a community, and they've been Jewish for at least 100 years since the time of Theodore Herzl of blessed memory. That's a whole nother story. I have those videos, by the way, about those unique type of Jews on YouTube under my channel. Look under YouTube/Word and Board and you'll find all the material. Okay, let's get started. I want to get started a little bit early this week with this Parashah. Parashah Ki Tavo essentially means when you come. You can find that Sidra in Deuteronomy chapter 26, verse 1. Also, as a general overview to let you know what you're getting into, well, again, a synopsis. We're in the last 6 weeks of Moshe's life, supposedly by tradition. Moshe wrote all of Dvarim except maybe the last 8 verses that were written by Joshua. But anyway, Moshe had a lot to get off of his chest. He really did. And not anger, but a lot of hurt, because he'd been through a lot. He'd been through a lot with the Jewish people. You know, the Golden Calf incident, you know, the Korah insurrection, rebellion, various, riots and coups against his government, and leading to thousands of people dying. And of course, wandering in the wilderness of 40 years. You know, it took a lot of joy out of him. He really did. He never lost a faith like Job. Never lost his faith. He lived a self-sacrificing life for his brethren. He was like the great grandfather of the 2 to 3 million people. I'm not sure exactly how many people there were when you consider all the men of fighting age, women and children, and other people that were following on in various stages of converting over to Judaism, or probably Noahides too. People that respected and was monotheistic and loved the holy God of Moshe. Well, in this section of Dvarim, Moshe is presenting messages that lead to blessings and curses. If you remember the previous parashah in Riyah, we mentioned the 2 mountains, the tale of 2 mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. Gerizim was for blessings, Mount Ebal was for curses. Also in the synopsis here, we're going to talk about the blessings of the land itself. Do you actually acknowledge why you had a very fruitful harvest this year compared to 7 years ago? Do you acknowledge that you are actually a tenant of the land? You don't actually own that land outright? Do you acknowledge Elohim in anything? Well, you present that acknowledgement and that thanksgiving simply through a 10% first fruit offering unto the Lord, offered before the temple and the witness of the Levitical priesthood. The first aliyah, again, the segue here, we're talking about the Bokurim. This is the requirement to bring the first fruits to the Holy Temple. Okay, what does a Jew do now, exiled in the diaspora, either by intent or you just don't have the funds to move to Israel at this time, you're waiting on a Mashiach, whatever it may be, personal choices or things or choices forced upon your life. You know, that's for Elohim to sort out, and not for me to make any judgment. But I'm saying when you live in the exile, you live in the diaspora, a lot of these laws are meaningless to you. If you're living in a skyscraper in Brooklyn, New York, and you're a Jew, and you go to synagogue every once in a while, you know, but you're not very truly observant, and then when you go to synagogue, you hear about the first fruit blessings, Bokurim, and it doesn't mean anything to you. You may have a terrace or something, you may have vegetables growing there, but you know, unless you're in Eretz Israel, a lot of these laws really don't make sense to you, and they're part of the total 613 mitzvot that, you know, you just cannot keep because of where your location is, for instance. So what do? We give tzedakah, we give charity, and a lot of Orthodox Jews, I've been in that circuit, I'm not there anymore. I am so thankful that I'm free with that. They emulate those prayers. So you emulate a prayer for say if you're a son of Levi, well, you emulate the prayer of the incense altar, you know, with the spices and things that go into it. You pray the prayer from the Torah, and then by praying the prayer and believing in the prayer faithfully, you actually keep that commandment, that mitzvah. Moving forward, there are many variety of vegetables, fruit, barley, wheat, everything you can imagine. I was looking at a documentary today on YouTube about the history of agriculture in Israel. Unbelievable where Israel has come from. In 1948, or even before that, when Mark Twain went to Israel, believe it or not, did you know that? In his time he went there, he didn't see much. It was just desolation. It was complete desolation. It was swampy, full of malaria-bearing mosquitoes, and no trees, no bushes, nothing. Well, I mean, the whole land was devastated by war, by Arab war against the Jews, the Ottoman conflict, and everything else. You know, it was very sad indictment against the Jewish people when people like an outsider like Mark Twain, who loved Israel incidentally, and talks about Israel and his time. Even President Abraham Lincoln talked about Jerusalem. But, you know, within 20 years after Israel was reborn, you know, 1948, they had successfully drained the swamps. We need to drain the swamp in D.C., don't we? But anyway, they minimized the disease from malaria, and people were dying from malaria. Can you believe it or not, in Israel? And then they are the best practice approach to 23 other nations as modeling after them, even Arabs. They don't like Jews too much. Even Pakistan, they don't like Jews at all. They don't have formal diplomatic relationship. They're modeling after the best practices of agriculture genius, nothing short of that. So what that's indication of is that, you know, the land of Israel is just average as far as the soil quality and things like that. If you're in Indonesia, a volcanic island chain, you can grow almost anything. You don't have to be a professional gardener. But the soil does not necessarily cooperate. There's the reason for that because Elohim will only bless that soil and cause olive trees to grow, to be fully mature trees, and after 7 years be able to harvest that and actually use it to sell, to take to the market for sale and profit and things of that nature, after you give the first fruit to Elohim for the temple, to be acknowledged in the temple. But, you know, Israel is doing a lot of good things today, and there's a lot of things they should be doing that they're not doing, okay? We've always been a stubborn people. We always have. But the fact that they are just miraculous crops growing in Israel, in desert areas. Now you have crops you can bring to market. You don't have swamps there anymore. It is impressive and amazing, the agriculture genius in a small strip of land called Eretz Israel. That means Elohim is with these people. They really are. And of course, allowing the land to rest and that kind of thing, they're actually God-fearing, Torah-centered Jewish businesses, mom and pop business in Israel that actually let the land rest every 7 years. And they need your help when that happens. I've talked about that in previous parashah. There is a Thanksgiving prayer known as the Modim. I say the Modim Ani every morning. Every Jew I know does it in the morning, just essentially thanking Elohim for waking you up out of consciousness, subconsciousness. Many scientists say when you go to sleep, that's the closest you come to dying. What wakes you up? What brings you out of that temporary subconscious state if it's not Elohim? Refreshing your nefesh. Some rabbis claim that, I don't know if it's true, it's not in the Torah, but it's kind of beautifully sweet and Kabbalistic too. I'll say that. I'm not saying it's absolute, but they say that when you go to sleep in a deep sleep, you have REM sleep. They say you don't sleep well unless you have REM sleep. That's rapid eye movement. I don't want to get into more detail, but essentially nefesh has checks and balances, a health check, a litmus test before the heavenly court. And then when you wake up, you thank Elohim for the privilege of waking up and greeting another sunrise. It's really beautiful when you think about it. So the second aliyah, and the qualification here is during temple times, these XYZ, these festivals, these mitzvahs were fully implemented. They're not implemented anymore, especially by Jews who are in the diaspora. Okay? So Jewish farmers were required to separate from their products several different tithes. These were distributed among the priests, the Levite, and the poor. And one tithe which was eaten by the owners in Jerusalem. These different tithes were not all given each year. Rather, they were in a 3-year cycle. In this aliyah, the Torah gives the procedure to be followed, the procedures there, to be followed in the day before Passover during those years, which followed the conclusion of a cycle, a growing cycle every 3 years. So the farmer was to declare that he has performed all the tithing duties and then beseeches the Heavenly Father to bless the people and the land, Eretz Israel. Again, there are some mom and pop businesses that actually still do this. It's very sacred that they consider Elohim and they don't forget the divine creator's input. Elohim has an investment in every square kilometer of land in Eretz Israel. He really does. And he watches over every sparrow. He watches over every single animal. In Israel, he cares about which way the wind is blowing. He cares if there's a drought situation. He cares about if you get the seasonal rains, and winter and things of that nature, and that the seasonal rains cut off when it's time to bring wheat and barley to harvest. So I see a growing presence of Elohim in the land. He is hidden. He is hidden by our own sinfulness and stubbornness, simply being. But he's also revealed in many different ways. For instance, when Elohim pricks your heart for someone that's vulnerable, someone that's hungry and poor, and you just want to reach deeper in your pocket and give the tzedakah to that person and stop thinking about your selfish self, then you see right there, that is Elohim operating the steering wheel of your life. It really is. When your child says, I cannot wait until it's Shabbat, that's also an indication that Elohim is driving the wheel of your life because you're doing something right. In the third aliyah, Moshe admonishes the Jews to observe God's commandments, all the commandments, 613 of them, reminding them that they have selected him to be their God. A simple covenant and contractual obligation. It goes back to Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb there. You remember the people swore a solemn covenant, a vow, which is unbreakable between a human being and a divine creator God, that you will keep keep your word with them. And God, by his own reputation, he has to keep his word with you. He has to promise to be with a remnant, even when most of Israel's carried off in exile. Elohim does not forget his covenants the way we forget. And it's amazing and sweet. So Moshe was welcoming Israel that his covenant was not something forced upon them. No Jew had to leave Goshen if they absolutely didn't want to. They were not forced. Moshe and Aaron and Miriam did not use bullwhips to drive them out of Israel. The plagues drove a lot of people out of Israel, but a lot of Jews stayed. Only a remnant chose to go against Pharaoh's armies and leave and just roll their dice of chance with Moshe's new God, essentially, because these people grew up pretty much secular in a polytheistic world. Well, these same people, 40 years later, an entirely new Generation X, as you could say, these young people are now adults. And Joshua and Caleb were older. I mean, they were probably in their 70s, I would imagine, because Moshe was knocking on 90 and knocking on 100 and getting very old. Aaron has passed away, Miriam had passed away, and he was on his own and all of this. So, this new generation of Jews had a choice to make. Did their parents even remind them that they made a faith promise with the divine creator? I hope they did. And this is what Moshe is saying. Whether you forgot or not, I remember I was at the mountain. I was called up to the mountain for 80 days and 80 nights to get the 10 Commandments rightfully delivered to you, right? After the golden calf incident, after Korach rebellion, Elohim never gives up on his people, and Moshe never gave up on his people either. Okay, in fourth aliyah, the Jews are instructed to gather large stones, unhewn. In other words, there's a difference between stones that Jews used during that time for sacrificial offerings to build a makeshift altar. You're not allowed to cut the stone. They were preferred to be naturally round, like from a river or creek or something like that. But these are large stones, and actually the 10 Commandments is plastered on them. Yes, these stones were made available after they immediately crossed the Jordan River, and there's probably nice, large, smooth stones in that river. Okay, these stones were plastered with some sort of material. It doesn't specify how. The entire Torah was engraved upon each of them. Okay. Another set of stones were also to be inscribed with the entire Torah on Mount Ebal. So you had a group of large stones plastered with the 10 Commandments on each stone, on each respective mountain, Gerizim and Ebal. And you had 6 of the 12 tribes on each mountain, and you had the Levitical high priest with the Ark of the Covenant between the 2 mountains. So just picture this in your mind, that this is a reminder of the covenant. Because every one of the 10 Commandments could be considered a blessing, right? And the converse, it could be a curse. And it's exactly the yin and yang, the law of opposites was in play here. So you read about this in the fifth aliyah, okay? So in the sixth aliyah, this section elaborates more about the blessings and then launches a lengthy description of the maledictions and suffering and of the curses and things of that nature. There's a lot of verses here. I'm not going to quote them. I'm going to have them in this video. In the backdrop, I have the land of Israel, some of the best harvest kind of pictures I could find for you to give you some idea of what's possible for a Jew living a blessed life. Listen, Elohim doesn't want anyone to be cursed. He wants everyone to be blessed. But when you make a promise, you get married, you take your wife underneath the chuppah and she circles around you 7 times. You're making a faith promise. She's making a promise to you. It's death do you part, and according to the laws of Moshe. Listen, making a promise can be a good thing. It will secure you in the world to come, right? It will secure you a life hereafter. It really will. In the day of the Mashiach, you will be there in some form or some way. But if you have knowledge is power, and knowledge could be a curse too. If you're raised in the cheder, if you're raised in a Shiva environment, if you're raised among observant and orthodox style of thinking, and you should know better, right? You should know better when you grow up. And even more importantly, when you decide to get married and have children, you raise your children with the ideals and virtues that were passed on to you from your parents and then your parents' parents. That's what it's all about. A blueprint for life and death is in the Torah. The Dvarim, I said before, I may have not clarified this, but I think almost about 70% of all the misvotes are summarized in some way in the one book of the Dvarim. It's like a Mishnah Torah. Also, 74 misvotes were mentioned out of the 613, just the last parashah, and we're elaborating on those too. So in synopsis here, what Moshe was trying to do, picture him on a high mountain looking down among tribal Israel. They are in a radius around the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the tent of meeting there. All the chieftains, each chief of every tribe had their banner. You could picture this. He's looking upon tribal Israel and he's speaking to them. He probably had a lot of echo space too. Have you ever tried to echo your voice across a valley or a mountainous area and that kind of thing? It's pretty awesome. But Moshe was speaking on behalf of Elohim. Moshe could not sleep one single night. If he did not know, he did everything that was humanly possible to convey the importance of the Jewish people, remembering their experiences on Mount Sinai, remembering their experiences leaving Goshen, Egypt, and the defeat of the Egyptians' army, the defeat of the Amalekites, giants, Og and Sihon, and the king of Moab and the king of Midian, defeating these people, and just remember that with the angel of the Lord going before them, it's a beautifully sweet when you think about it. But free will is so critically important to it, right? Elohim does not want to beat someone into submission. He'll never do that. He will allow us to destroy our lives if that's what we choose. But he will send emissaries to us, rabbis, wise people, tzaddiks, and other people. You may accidentally see someone on YouTube or whatever. I'm not advocating that for that material. But I'm just saying God is everywhere when we least expect it. He's there in our children. He's there in our friends. He's there with our co-workers, even Christians, even Gentiles. It's amazing to me the wisdom I hear from some Gentiles, things I hadn't even thought about. People gravitate toward me because I'm an Orthodox Jew at work, and they see me as someone as peculiar, unique, and different. But I don't just wear these clothes to look elitist or look self-righteous or condescending. No, I wear this because I'm proud of who I am. I'm even prouder of my God. So if I could say, if Rabbi or ben-Emmett before I sign out, if I can give you any advice at all, I've lived nearly 59 years. Okay, I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes to get to the point where I'm at today, and I consider my life blessed today. And I look back in my life, and there's not one single time I could say that God is not with me. Sometimes we say, where is God? God, why don't you answer my prayer? Why don't you hear me? We know Elohim's not only in your present, is in your past, doing surgery on your past to forge a possible new future for you. That's how it works. But sometimes it takes time, right? And the virtue is patience. And we should be patient with Elohim. Because remember, he keeps all of his promises all the time. And if he says, I will preserve a remnant to myself, he will do that. He is our eternal Father. He is our King. He wants to be our best friend. He wants to replace that horrible father that you may have had as a child. And don't put your personal pain points that you had with your father or mother, whatever, don't put that on God, because he's not that kind of person at all. He's really not. And Elohim does not care if you're Caucasian, if you're black, if you're colored. He does not care about your demographics. He does not care about your political affiliation. He does not care if you're a woman or a man. or indifferent. He does not care about all these things that we care so much about, of wealth and fortune, lead and things like that, that they've tested the isotopes going back 3,200 years ago. They've dated it supposedly where Joshua was on Mount Ebal. People actually had sacrificial offerings on these two mountains for a short period of time before they gradually transitioned to Shiloh. Not germane. But Israel is uncovering these things that I just got through discussing with you, which is pretty amazing. They found the place that Abraham made his sacrifices before Elohim, about 12 miles north of Hebron. It really is. I saw that story too. But why am I telling you this? Because this is not just storytelling. This is not just wishful thinking. There actually was a man named Moshe, the most humblest man has ever lived, a prophet of God, the chief lawgiver, who had the most unique and supernatural relationship with Elohim than any other prophet in the future from his time. He put his life on the line for his people. He begged Elohim to forgive the Jewish people. Elohim could have reconstituted 12 more tribes from Moshe and reinvented Israel. But you have this human thinking and this human dialogue between the King of Kings and then his servant Moshe. And of course, Moshe, Elohim knew what Moshe was thinking and what he would say, but he was testing his virtue regardless. So God bless you in the week ahead. May the Lord always be with you. May He shine His face upon you and give you peace no matter what's happening in your life. Remember, ben-Emmett loves you for who you are. You may be judged severely by rabbis. You may be judged severely by your friends. You may be in a broken relationship. You may be suffering from a broken heart. But Elohim is always there. He wants to hold our hand. Hey, listen, it's not Elohim who lets go of our hand in life's journeys. It's us. It really is. It's us. Remember, ben-Emmett is that lighthouse on the hill. I'm not politically correct. I'm the white elephant in the room, and I'm known as the inconvenient truth. Listen, if I can encourage you to focus more on the Torah and less on rabbinical opinions and thinking as espoused in the Talmud and the Mishnah Torah, I would encourage you to do that. That's not blasphemy to say that. It's not blasphemy to say that God was completely right and the prophets are completely right, while man's opinion is not completely right. But unfortunately, it is part of our tradition and it's pretty much plastered like those rocks I discussed in this parashah. But anyway, living is enlightenment, moving forward in life, becoming wise, that's what it's all about. Ben-Emmett signing out. Take care and shalom aleichem.